Hi, fifth grade team. I apologize that this video is coming to you so late on the day before this lesson. I swear I've been working on it. I was really excited when I first talked to you all about trying to incorporate this idea of the history of Latin American identity and indigenous communities pre-Spanish colonialization and the conversation around the transatlantic slave trade, ultimately getting into the conversation around like mestizaje and this all-encompassing Latino identity and who that helps and who that harms. Was very excited when we first all talked about it. Turns out finding material that touches on that's fifth grade appropriate is a lot harder than I thought. So I made this video to kind of walk you through a little bit what I put together, but also to say like use what you see fit, because I don't know your fifth graders as well as you do. So essentially the teaching point, the Lucy Calkins teaching point, is that writers, it's kind of a research teaching point that writers ask questions and try to figure out answers to those questions. The DEIJ teaching point is like this intro into the dangers of mestizaje, or this concept that some identities are seen or valued more than others. So kind of opening up the activity just as opening up the lesson as a activating prior knowledge, just like, hey, we've learned about the different identities that are a part of Latin American history, Spanish, Indigenous, and African. You can have them kind of share out verbally or write in the chat or whatever is best for you to see what they remember about those identities. And then the teacher point is like, as we've learned about these identities, we've also been practicing skills of a good writer. We've practiced summarizing and paraphrasing and organizing our ideas. And so we're going to push our writing skills a little bit further. And then this is the teaching point. By knowing that good writers, or practicing that good writers, add to their writing by their writing and thinking, by asking questions and figuring out answers to those questions. So then here's where it gets a little bit tricky. I did my best to try to figure out like a fifth grade appropriate way to introduce this topic, and obviously you know your kids best, you are the experts, but I kind of thought of like, so as we've been learning about these different identities that make up Latin American history, I've been thinking, today people use the word mestizo to describe people in Latin American countries. I'm wondering about how that idea of mestizo represents the identities we've learned about from history. I also know another term that I hear used a lot in talking about identities in Latin America is Latino. Have you heard that word? What does it mean to you? And sort of maybe just opening up the space for kids to share what they think and know already about Latino and mestizo. Most of it will be neutral, because I think in theory it's supposed to be a neutral term. I would think, most of them say like, some of them might reference J Balvin and his obsession with constantly saying Latino gang, or mestizo as like being mixed and being different races and being mixed. And so kind of opening up the conversation. So then going back to the teaching point and the activity, it's reminding them, well, good writers, we should explore the answers to those questions. So I'm going to share some sources for you to research and see if we can come up with some answers. Use the Jamboard or anything that you guys want to create if you're not liking Jamboards to track your answers. So here's the Jamboard. I've split it up with really specific questions per slide because I think the nature of the stuff is a little bit heavier, so trying to specify it might help. So it's like, just slide 1, what did you learn about the concept of mestizaje? Just slide 2, what do you notice about these images and these pictures? Slide 3, what does the video say it's dangerous about mestizaje? Slide 4 and 5, what are some of the ways that the term Latino is complicated? So this is the slide I'm referring to. So these are pre-formatted like before because these are really heavy videos. They're definitely like too much for the whole students to watch. So they're pre-formatted, like this one's only pre-formatted for 43 seconds, where he's just talking about how mestizaje excludes African identities. This one is pre-formatted for, you'll see here, oh, it's not pre-formatted, I need to fix that. But it's only pre-formatted for like 30 seconds, and they're talking about like the complexities of Latinos and the idea of Latino identity. This one as well is gonna be set up so it's just those like 30 or 40 seconds for each video. Slide 2, this question here. These pictures you see are historical representations of what mestizaje meant. Do you notice anything? Whose identity of the 3 that we've learned about, so you might want to remind them like Spanish, Indigenous, African are centered or most represented, maybe whose identities are ignored. This might be the hardest one. The videos all kind of give the direct answers to the question. This is the one that really requires interpretation. So you might need to kind of walk them through this or not do this one. It's totally up to you. But what you see here are just like historical representations of Latin America post independence, post-colonialism, yet we see, like, we've learned about indigenous folks, we've learned about the amount of slave trade that happened that ended up in South America and Latin America, yet these images don't really represent that, right? We see a lot of, whiteness or Spanishness, Europeanness centered, and like this idea of trying to be lighter skinned. So this is probably the more complex one. I'll obviously leave it to what you guys think in your professional judgment as far as like, is this good? Is it not? And maybe taking it out of, you can erase this slide too and not even have that one. The other ones I think are a bit easier because the videos are specifically spotted to like these 30-40 second clippets that answer these specific questions. So this is the Jamboard. It's just one right now, but again, if you wanted to give it so that each kid had their own, you can just do duplicate a million times until like the Jamboard, it goes max to 20. So I'll set this one up so it's already at like 20, and you can do it that way so each kid has their own Jamboard, or you can make a copy and have it so that it's kids are working on it in groups or however you think is best. Please let me know. I will be looking at my phone. Text me, email me. I hate that I'm getting this to you all so late. Katie and I have been meeting, but I just kind of struggled with finding, I was so excited about, so excited about this concept and this lesson. I do think there's going to be more material for looking at like the modern day, but I've really struggled finding like historical pieces that talk about mestizaje and its origins and like the dangers of it in a 5th grade friendly way. So I went with these videos. I hope that you find them useful. If you have this in present mode, it will skip right to the parts and stop right at the parts that I have it pre-formatted for. I know some students some folks shared with me that their students weren't able to access it on the Chromeboards. So Katie had mentioned to me that her solution to that was actually just playing it in the class and kind of pausing it and playing it and letting students like fill out their Jamboard. So that's definitely also an alternative, although I hope that it works however you decide you want to do it.